What's up, you absolutely wonderful Magento 11 friends of mine? Joseph here with, you guessed it, another practice test question. We're going to continue our conversation of GraphQL just because I believe there's such a gap of knowledge in this area. As I mentioned last week, GraphQL is here to stay. It is our responsibility to become better and better with what we're talking with our craft. And since GraphQL is here to stay, might as well get a head start on it. Why did we create this course? And I'm just going to say this really quickly. So yes, GraphQL is here to stay, but our ultimate inspiration came out of a problem, a frustration of ours, and that was preparing for the Master Architect exam. Folks, Master Architect requires an 84% score to pass. It might be unachievable. It may be, but this course here is designed to help you overcome a significant body of knowledge that is discussed in the course on this test. So by becoming an absolute expert on GraphQL, and we're going to come out with some more topics here in the future, but by becoming an expert on this, you will succeed. And we're excited about this. We are really excited about this. So if you haven't already, make sure to go over to swiftotter.com/GraphQL-course. Then you can go there, pick up that test, or pick up that course. And the cool thing is you do get a badge, a SwiftOtter badge that you can put on your LinkedIn profile. And actually, it's funny. We designed these badges to look somewhat similar to the Magento, the old Magento days badges. So just like you see that my award there on the back, it's kind of looks similar to that as well. So the goal is I know the community loves Magento as it was, and this is just kind of a way to give a nod back to all of you here in this way. Let's talk about our practice test question. You are helping a client who utilizes Vue Storefront and Adobe Commerce, who are running into some DDoS attacks. Was it direct denial of service attacks? I think that's the acronym there, where the attacker is adding several bundled products to the cart, then triggering the cart query. You can find the attacker is utilizing a network of bots, so it's impossible to ban a specific IP address. You are unable to see the exact query as this is a post request. Which option will reduce the scope of this attack? Boy, oh boy, this is a common problem. And with the power of GraphQL, that problem is not going away anytime soon. But the good news is, in my experience, I rarely have a situation where it's multiple IP addresses hitting a website. Generally speaking, it's one IP address, which in this case would make it very easy to ban. We just grow into Cloudflare and ban that IP address. That's pretty easy. But in this case, there was a detail I added that made this a little bit more obtuse. And that is that it's impossible that they're using a network of bots. So we have to figure out another solution. And we're talking about a very quick solution we have to implement because the site's basically inoperable at this point. So what do we do? Well, we have three different options that I illustrated here. We can configure the max iterations directive in store configuration. We can reduce the query depth configuration to a minimum, or we can enable input limiting. Three options here, and let's walk through each one of them. So the configure the max iterations directive in store configuration. To be frank, I'm not aware of this. If you find it, let me know. Maybe we could build it, and that would be an interesting option. So that just doesn't exist. And this is where I had an experience a couple of years ago where I was writing the Adobe Commerce Cloud study guide, and I thought I was like maybe a few days into it. I was like, hey, I'll just go sit for the test. Not a big deal. Went and took it. I got like a 50% score. I was like, wow, that was way harder than I thought it was going to be. It really kicked my butt. So I finished building out the study guide, went and sat for the test, and then I took the test again, and I was like, wow, that was so easy. I got like 80 or 90%. It's like I kicked its butt. What was the difference? It was study. And in this case, study makes a very, very big difference as well. And that's why we built this course, is to help facilitate in a friendly learning environment and that we walk you through knowledge of these different steps. So reducing the query depth configuration to a minimum. I'm going to show you the dev docs information about this. One of the ideas or the cool aspects of GraphQL is that we can build out complex objects, basically nested objects that contain other objects. We can do that kind of in REST, but the problem with REST is if we were to build out something really complex, if we do a query, we would get that whole, we would get this whole kit and caboodle everything. Versus in GraphQL, you can say, hey, I want this, this, and this. We as responsible developers on the front end, we're like, okay, we only want this, this, and this. But the attacker might not. And so if we are maybe, I'm going to say a little less than careful, which again, there's a balance. If we're super careful, then that can make life harder for us. If we're not overly careful, it makes life easier. But yeah, we kind of open the door for these problems. So at the end of the day, we could have an issue. And ultimately, this would be like native Magento right here. I mean, like if you get a quick cart, we have the cart items, quote items inside of there, and then we have the products, and then we can have like a bundle product and with the children, like it can just cascade through here. So this option of reduce the query depth to a minimum, well, that's what DevDocs talks about. Following query has a maximum depth of 5, but the default value of 20. There is a default value of 20, and this can cause some real problems. Consider dropping that back. Honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea across the board to pull that back to probably a maximum of 5. If you run into problems, maybe increase it a little bit, but I don't see much of a reason to go past 5 in this case. So yes, query depth would immediately start cutting off these CPU issues, because the other thing to remember is that the cart query is not cacheable. So yeah, it kind of has a problem. Then there's enable input limiting. Input limiting is a feature in Adobe Commerce, but it works based off of IP address. So while yes, this is a good idea to probably implement normally, if you have a bot attack, yeah, it doesn't do you any good at all. So thus our answer is B, reduce the query depth configuration to a minimum. Again, this is a immediate short-term fix. I'm not going to say that having a small query depth is not a bad idea. Regardless, it still is a short-term fix. You probably want to consider how, if there's even more security measures that you can take to mitigate this. Of course, look at this through through Cloudflare, see if there's any way that you can start banning query or manning requests at that level, that sort of thing. But at the immediate, ensuring query depth is at an absolute minimum is a really good idea. So there was your practice test question for the week about GraphQL. Remember, I highly recommend you look at this course. This course is designed to provide you with incredible value to kickstart your understanding, and more than kickstart, really to make you the premier expert on GraphQL in your organization. And I'm not aware of how that will hurt you. This is going to only serve to massively benefit you, so as you can take your organization into the future to utilize this really powerful language for fetching information from the back end. Great work, and we will see you next weekend.